The crystalline towers of the Zephyrian Imperial Palace pierced the amber sky of Nexus Prime, their surfaces reflecting the twin suns that bathed the capital in eternal twilight. Within the highest spire, Emperor Vex Thul paced his private chambers, with the measured steps of desperation, his forearms gesticulating wildly as his chief advisor cowered nearby. 17 caregivers, the Emperor's voice boomed, his scaled hide shifting from deep purple to angry crimson. 17 of the finest childminders in the galaxy, and not one lasted more than 3 solar cycles with my offspring. The advisor, a thin creature called Helen from the merchant world of Arcturus 7, wrung his 6-fingered hands nervously. Your Imperial Magnificence, perhaps we should consider that young Dracolings are naturally spirited. Spirited? Emperor Vex Thul's massive head swiveled toward Helen, golden eyes blazing. The last caregiver required 3 weeks in a medical regeneration pod after little Zixara accidentally sneezed plasma fire on her. The one before that suffered a complete nervous breakdown when Morden decided to practice his dimensional phasing abilities during nap time. As if summoned by their father's words, a tremendous crash echoed from the nursery wing, followed by what sounded suspiciously like the Imperial Guard shouting orders to evacuate the East Corridor. A moment later, childish giggling drifted through the palace's communication system. The thermal regulators are offline again, Helen reported, checking his data tablet with trembling appendages. And the gravitational stabilizers are fluctuating. Emperor Vex Thul collapsed into his throne, a masterpiece carved from a single meteorite. At this rate, I'll have to cancel the Galactic Trade Summit. I cannot leave my children unattended, and no being in the known universe seems capable of managing them. It was then that Anna stepped forward from the shadows near the great doors. The human had been so quiet that even the Emperor's enhanced senses had barely registered her presence. She was small by galactic standards, standing, barely 5.5 feet tall, with the typical brown hair and unremarkable features that made humans blend into crowds across the galaxy. Your Imperial Magnificence, Anna said, her voice steady despite addressing the most powerful being in 3 star systems. I would like to volunteer for the position. The silence that followed was so complete that the distant sounds of the baby dragon's latest adventure seemed deafeningly loud. Helen's data tablet clattered to the floor, the Emperor's massive form straightened slowly, like a mountain deciding to pay attention. You? Emperor Vex Thul studied the human with newfound interest. But you are small and soft. My children are Dracolings. They breathe fire, phase through matter, and their emotional outbursts can destabilize local spacetime. Anna smiled, and there was something in that expression that made the Emperor pause. It wasn't fear or uncertainty. It was the quiet confidence of someone who had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. Your Magnificence, I've read the reports on all 17 previous caregivers. They all made the same fundamental error. They tried to control your children. And you would do differently? The Emperor leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. I would do what humans do best, Anna replied. I would adapt. Within the hour, Anna found herself standing in the nursery wing, surveying the wreckage of what had once been a carefully designed play area. Scorch marks decorated the walls in abstract patterns, several pieces of furniture were embedded in the ceiling, and a large hole in the floor revealed the room below, where nervous servants scurried about with fire suppression equipment. The baby dragons themselves were magnificent, each no larger than a house cat but radiating power that made the air itself shimmer. Zixara, the eldest at barely 2 years old, watched Anna with intelligent golden eyes, while small puffs of blue flame escaped her nostrils. Morden, 18 months old, flickered in and out of visibility as he practiced his dimensional abilities, appearing and disappearing at random intervals. The youngest, Kethmore, barely 6 months old, floated 3 feet above his crib, giggling, as gravity seemed to bend around him. The other servants backed toward the exits, but Anna walked calmly to the center of the room and sat cross-legged on the floor. The baby dragons watched her with curious intensity. Hello, little ones, she said softly. I'm Anna. I'm going to tell you a story. Zixara tilted her head, flame subsiding to a gentle glow. Morden solidified completely for the first time, in hours. Even little Kethmore settled gently to the ground, though he maintained a slight hover. Anna began to speak, weaving a tale of adventure and friendship, of brave heroes in distant worlds. But as she spoke, she did something the previous caregivers had not. She moved. Her hands painted pictures in the air. Her voice rose and fell, with the rhythm of the story. And most importantly, she made the children part of the narrative. And then the brave princess, just like Zixara, used her fire breath to light the way through the dark cave, Anna said, and the little dragonling puffed a careful flame that illuminated the room with dancing shadows. The invisible knight, clever like Morden, snuck past the sleeping giant. Anna continued, and Morden flickered in and out of sight, playing along with delighted chirps. And the youngest hero, strong like Kethamore, lifted the magical stone with his special powers, Anna concluded, and baby Kethamore made a crayon float gently through the air, his eyes bright with joy. Hours passed unnoticed. The baby dragons clustered around Anna, their destructive impulses channeled into creative play. When they grew restless, she taught them games that used their abilities safely. When they grew hungry, she showed them how to use their powers to help prepare their meals. When nap time came, she sang lullabies in the old human tongue, her voice weaving a spell of peace that even the Emperor's sensors registered as unprecedented calm. Emperor Vexthul found them there as the twin suns set, his children sleeping peacefully around the human who had accomplished what no other being could. Anna looked up from where she sat. Zixara curled in her lap like an oversized cat, Morden visible and snoring softly against her shoulder, and Kethmore floating gently just above her outstretched palm. "How?" the Emperor whispered, afraid to break the spell. Anna smiled that same confident smile. "Your Magnificence, every species in the galaxy tried to impose their own methods on your children. But humans, we don't just adapt to new environments. We find ways to make impossible things work together. Your children don't need to be controlled. They need to be understood, challenged, and loved. They're not just baby dragons. They're individuals with incredible gifts." The Emperor stared at this small human who had solved his greatest crisis with nothing but patience, creativity, and an inexhaustible capacity for seeing potential instead of problems. In that moment, he understood why humans had spread across the galaxy, despite their apparent physical limitations. They possessed something far more valuable than strength or natural weapons. They had the ability to find solutions where others saw only obstacles. "The position is yours," Emperor Vexthul said quietly. "For as long as you wish it." Anna nodded, gently adjusting her position so the sleeping dragons remained comfortable. "I'll need some supplies, art materials, musical instruments, and about 50 books of human children's stories translated into galactic standard." "Done," the Emperor agreed immediately. As news of Anna's success spread throughout the palace, then the system, then across the galaxy, other species began to take notice. The human who tamed the Emperor's baby dragons became legend, but more importantly, she became the first of many humans who would prove that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in power but in the wisdom to use gentleness as a force of change. And in the years that followed, as the Emperor's children grew into wise and compassionate rulers, they would often speak of the human who taught them that being powerful didn't mean being destructive. It meant having the strength to choose kindness, even when you could choose otherwise. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.